Hello everyone, welcome to Crafty Garden. Today, as you can see, we're going to talk about how to calculate yards per pound, or grist. And I thought I would just do a short video. We're going to jump right in. So yards per pound, and it's also called grist. So a way to measure the weight of a yarn, and there's different ways to measure yarn. This is specifically to do with the weight of the yarn. So you might have heard of wraps per inch, and you probably use wraps per inch to see, you know, an estimate about what the weight of your yarn is. But wraps per inch, that's not the only way to calculate the weight of a yarn, and there are other ways. I like yards per pound. So it just takes a little bit of math to figure it out, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. So basically it compares the yardage to its weight. So it's also called grist. I prefer yards per pound because I think the name explains exactly what it is. So let's jump in. How it works, it's the number, let's write it over here, it's the number of yards. You know, maybe you have 400 yards, something like that, of the yarn. 400 yards, for example. And then let's say it's a certain amount of weight. Maybe it's 100 grams. But for yards per pound, it wants to know per pound. So weight in pounds, the weight in LB is short for pounds, so weight in pounds. What that equals is the yards per pound. Okay, so that's basically what it is. You typically don't measure things in pounds, or at least I don't. You might. I use a kitchen scale. So I just want to talk about how to convert from grams to pounds. So let's do it like this. Converting from grams. Okay, so you want to start with the number of yards, and you want to divide that by the weight in grams. So I'm just gonna say number of grams. Okay, because this is in grams and not pounds, we have to convert it. So we're gonna multiply it by the number of grams in 1 pound. 1 pound. So there are 453 I'm gonna round it to 6. 453.6 grams in 1 pound. And that's just off the top of my head, so I hope that's correct. I'll have to double check later, but I'm pretty sure that is correct. So the number of yards divided by the number of grams, and then to convert this to pounds, we've got to get rid of this gram. Let's make that G look more like a G. Got to get rid of these grams, cancel those out, and we want yards per pound. So that's how you do that. And I'm going to show you an example, and this is going to equal yards per pound. So here's an example. Let's say we have, let's say we do have 400 yards, and let's say we have and 100 grams, and we want to divide that, which is going to be 4, and we're going to multiply by the 453.6. Okay, you don't really need to do the over 1 part. That's just for the 1 pound. Basically, you can do this in your calculator, of course. 400 divided by 100 equals, you take what that equals, which will be 4 in this case, and then you're going to multiply it by 453.6. And that is going to equal your yards per pound. Okay, I'm back. Just got chased around by a bee. Cut this video like twice. All right, I added this chart and I double checked that it is in fact 453.6 rounded grams in 1 yard. This is my preferred way to, the light's blowing out a little bit. This is my preferred way to measure. I have a kitchen scale that I measure with, and I can measure in grams or ounces, and that's the only two things that I'm going to show, the two ways to measure that I'm going to show, because those are the ones that I use the most. And I live in the US and we use yards for everything, so if you use meters, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get into meters today, or probably at all, just because I don't use meters. But so I want to get back to what I was talking about. So I needed a chart to be able to explain to you what this number even means. So sure, you calculate this yards per pound, but what does it even mean? What does it mean that it has 1,814.4 yards per pound? So it means that you can get 1,814.4 yards out of 1 pound of fiber. You know, hand spinning, of course, it's not going to be perfect, but that's roughly what that's saying. And what weight does that approximately make? So these charts you can find on the internet. If you just search yards per pound chart, you'll find them. There's conflicting information all over the internet and in hand spinning books. I just picked out a few different weights to talk about, and these are some ranges that I found online. You might find some that are a little bit more, a little bit less. It's all kind of, you know, take it with a grain of salt. So if I had 400 yards in a skein of yarn, maybe I just spun some yarn, and it happened to weigh exactly 100 grams, I would take 400, divide it by 100, get the 453.6, multiply it by 453.6, so 4 times 453.6, and I would get this number. Then I would look at a chart, you know, probably pull one off of the internet. If you have a hand spinning book, they might include it in there. Yarn Eye Texture does, by Jillian Marino. Marino. I think I say her last name wrong. Oh well. So you can see that this range falls somewhere around a heavy fingering to a really light sport weight. So I would call it fingering. And then that gives you just an idea of, okay, so, you know, if this is hand spun, I just made a heavy fingering weight yarn. All right, converting from, if I want to go from ounces to, see that ink is fine, the sun is like washing it out. And when I started filming, it wasn't that way, so I'm just going to move this over. Converting from ounces, so you want start with the exact same thing, the number of yards, so however many yards you have, divided by the number of, instead of grams, ounces, and I'm just going to do OZ. And this time we're going to multiply it by, there are 16 ounces in 1 pound. So looks almost the same as before, except now we have ounces, and instead of 453.6 grams in a pound, we've got 16 ounces in a pound. And this is also going to give us yards per pound. Okay, so here's a little example that we're going to do together. This is, let's say I spun some yarn. I had a 4-ounce braid, and I weighed it. Somehow I magically still have perfectly 4 ounces. It's probably not likely, but let's pretend. And let's say I figured out that I have 256 yards. And I'm not even going to get into how to figure out how many yards you have. That if you have a nitty knotty, you can't exactly trust your nitty knotty. If you wind it on 2 yards, if you have a nitty knotty that's set at 2 yards and you wind that around, your yarn might stretch, it might not stretch. So what I do is I actually measure around the hank after I get it off of the Nitty Knotty. I don't trust the Nitty Knotty. And there's some debate on, you know, the best ways to measure yardage. It's not as straightforward as you think. All right, so this is what I have, right? So I want to convert it to yards per pound. So I'm going to multiply it by 16, basically. That's the shortcut. 256 divided by 4, multiply it by 16. Right, 16 ounces and 1 pound. So you don't have to write all of this out. That's not necessary. All you have to do is, if you take your calculator, can you see it? You take 256, because that's your yardage. You divide it by the weight. It's 4 ounces. I enter, so that's 64. Then I multiply it by the 16, and I get 1,024. So 1,024, which I know that 1,000 yards per pound is a DK weight. So this is roughly a DK weight. Kind of a light DK weight. So that is basically how you do yards per pound, how you calculate it. And I find this really useful. I hope that this video helped you kind of demystify it a little bit. It's really not that complicated. Let's just do for fun. Let's do one more example of converting from grams. This is the one I usually do grams more than I do anything else, because I feel like grams are more accurate. With my kitchen scale, I can do either grams or ounces, but I always choose grams because it's a smaller unit of measurement, so I feel like it's more accurate. Okay, so let's say we have, let's say we have 324 yards. 324 yards. And let's say we have 95 grams. Roughly. All right, well, let's do more. Let's do 125 grams. So we have 324 yards. We have 125 grams. Really hope you can see that. Okay, enter. I get 2.592. And now I'm going to multiply that by the 453.6. Enter. And I get 1,175.7, which again is about a DK weight. Falls right in that range. So that's just how that works. I wanted to show you that last example just to show you don't have to write out all of this. This is just kind of to show you, you know, the background of where it comes from, how it works. So I hope this really helped you, and I hope you will start calculating your hand spun in yards per pound. You know, have that. It's just another tool to have in your back pocket. This is a reps per inch tool, and I just want to show you the ranges that this is from Katrinkles. She's at tons and tons of festivals. She sells little wooden things. So let's look at the range. She says fingering is about 14 reps per inch, which is very different than what this says. She says lace is 16 to 18. That's different. DK is 11. Look, that's pretty close. Worsted, 9 to 12. Includes the 9. See, there's a lot of information that doesn't match up out there on the internet. So I don't always trust reps per inch. If I really want to do, you know, a big project, I will calculate yards per pound. And if I really, you know, want to calculate enough for a sweater or something like that, I would trust yards per pound a little more than reps per inch. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.